Hello, good morning. Um, I thought we could go back to the app. I think we're ready for that. And I did a little bit of prepping here. So now we're on this branch where I actually published Mobx Lite in the first version, like just a what do you call it when it's like not official? You kind of just sleep release or whatever they call it. Doesn't matter. And I'm still writing documentation. But I thought I got a good idea. So this family Scrum app is using Firebase, and Firebase is based on real time. Traditionally, it's based on real time. So you don't really have this concept of querying data. It's just all subscriptions, which is often very confusing. You really want to separate that, like fetching data from subscriptions, but Firebase didn't do that in the beginning, and that's kind of stuck with it as it moved to Firestore and stuff like that. But we're actually going to change that. So we're going to treat our data using queries to actually get some hands-on experience with the query thing. We're going to have mutations, and then we're going to have some subscriptions, but those subscriptions are going to be like, what's it called? Like in place. Well, oh my god. The challenging thing is this family Scrum app really is a real-time app. Like all the data should be subscribed to because you're sharing it with like a family member kind of thing. But at the same time, it's so weird to just start out not knowing the state of your initial data and just showing the UI. I find that to be very weird. So maybe we can rather... Yeah, we're going to change it regardless because I want to use this query thing. So we're going to fetch the initial data, and when we fetched it, then we're going to subscribe to it. The weird thing about Firebase is that then it will trigger an event for every single piece of data again as like the initial data, but we already have the data. But what I think we're going to do for now is just ignore damn it. Yeah, damn it. I thought I made up my mind on this. Because I don't want it to be artificial either, right? And with Firebase, you don't really think about initial data fetching or anything like that. You just subscribe to your data and then it populates, which is a blessing and a curse because you don't know the state of your initial data fetching. But at the same time, everything's just there, right? You don't have to think about revalidation or anything like that. You're kind of freed completely from these like query abstractions and all of this. But that's not very helpful when we try to actually use a query concept. Like I don't even have to have optimistic updates and everything, which is actually a really good thing. But there's a tiny jank, right? When I add something, there is a tiny jank there. So what should we do? Should we use queries and then also subscribe to everything? But just the fact that you get the initial data and then you subscribe to it and you just set all the data once more, that bothers the hell out of me. So to do that, it would have to be like... Yeah, and then it's like, okay, what if we subscribe to actual changes. We know if it's been added, deleted, or modified. Oh yeah, we can do that. Okay, we're gonna do that. Yeah, sorry, because then if things are added and it's already there, we don't add it again. Yeah, okay, we're gonna do that. But we're also gonna move our data into one piece of state, and the reason we do that is because there is cross-referencing of data. So for example, when you look at a week, there are dinner references for each day in the week, or potentially like a dinner reference for each day, and that should be a reference to an actual like dinner thing. And you have week to do, which also has a reference to an actual to do, but that one's a little bit different because that's really that's like a circular reference. Because like a to do has a reference to a week to do, and a week to do has a reference to a to do. But I'm not sure if I actually. Well, we show the title or the description of the to do. Yeah. So, anyways, we're gonna start out by simply and what I'm also doing now, I'm actually calling all of these things state. I think that's a good convention, because if you're gonna like find a file, for example, you know that if you search for dinner, you have dinner state, right? So you don't open the dinner component, like you don't know it from the name. And also for typing, it helps a ton, so that you can import these types safely without conflicting with component names. So I think like regardless of using functions or classes, that's just a good way of doing it. Okay. So I'm not quite sure about the complexity of the data here, but let's create a new folder for it. So we're gonna have data, and then export function, data state. Oh, sorry, I should call it data state. Data state, and this is gonna be export type, data state, return type of data state. And we need the environment in here. Let's see, and let's call it type params equals environment. Yeah, and also change the environment to be a single environment, even though you can have like multiple environments. We don't have that here, so I just simplified it. So that's something you would do if you actually had multiple environments you wanted to run the app in. You would have like environments where the root has like an interface to that environment, and then you would have the specific implementations. But let's see what we're gonna do about this. So let's take the first set of, so we have dinners state, for example, and this is using family persistence. I'm a little bit unsure. Let's say we need to receive that family persistence. Yeah, and I should probably use like absolute, what's it called, aliasing to the environment here, but yeah, whatever. Family persistence, and then that was a dinner state. Yeah, so before we continue, I think we should add the possibility to just query the different pieces of data. Yeah, and then dinner state. We have add dinner here. So we're not going to have add dinner on the data. We're still going to have dinner's state. It's just that we're going to have we're rather going to take the data here. But we still need family persistence here. We need family storage? Yep, we do. Okay, so I think we just haven't added the thing here, which would be the actual data. Okay, but let's go and fix the persistence first. So we're gonna add another way to interact with this data. So this is the collection API, and we're gonna basically allow you to what are we gonna call that? What does Firebase call it? Let's just call it get for now. Yeah, get docs. Oh, where's the? Do I have a type for it? I don't think I do. Oh, yeah. Oh, duplicate identifier. Oh, query snapshot. Oh, sorry, I already have it. Sorry, I didn't know that. Okay, cool. So what are we gonna do here? The point is that this isn't really reactive data. So I think we can just do this. We'll start there at least. And then we're gonna say, what was it? Dinners? Reactive query, get dinners. Function get dinners. And then, yeah, let's add family persistence here. Family persistence. So we're gonna return family persistence dinners get all. Okay. So this is gonna get us the dinners, and dinners doesn't have any cross reference to anything. So that's fine. But the thing is, we actually want to transform the dinners. We don't want them to. So this is the thing we discussed many times. It's like when you grab data, do you want that data to just be data, like a DTO? Or do you want to wrap something around it? And the thing is, if we leave the DTOs here, and then we rather derive those DTOs somewhere else, like for example in the dinner state, we just return a list of dinners, and then we map them to like dinner state, for example, like we actually do here. Then every time you make a change to the underlying DTOs, it's going to map over every single dinner and create a new dinner state for each of them. And then that's not very optimal. But we actually want to change this. So we are going to actually share this state. I forgot about that. So what we're rather going to do here, we're going to say dinners. So this is a record of string dinner DTO. Well, it's not, it's actually dinner state. And then we are gonna tell it to store everything. How are we gonna do? Oh my God, this is not well thought through. I'm wondering, like, where do you put these like cross-reference maps? Because what I really want is I want to have a query for dinners, but I also want to share that state with other things. And what I'm wondering is like, okay, what if I just expose empty data here? Yeah, you know what? We're gonna change this. Sorry. I'm just not happy about like it. The biggest problem for me is that it just isn't intuitive, and I never experienced that before. Data fetching has always been intuitive to me. Like you just go and grab it, and you kind of just treat it as the DTOs they are when they arrive. I think there's like adding an abstraction over DTOs makes things unintuitive to me, because there's a cost to it. Like even though it's nice from a component consumption perspective, like it's the whole thing of deriving the DTOs and not just having the DTOs as is. Yeah, it bothers me. So an example of that is, so for example, you have grocery state, right? So normally you wouldn't have grocery state. You would just have a grocery DTO, right? And if you wanted to shop or buy or whatever, shop grocery, that would be like shop grocery on the grocery state. And you would have to pass in the grocery ID that you want to shop, right? But maybe that's because I've been using React so much, and I'm in that mindset of doing it that way. But it's just so much more intuitive to me. Because I feel like I'm jumping hoops here, trying to create these like nice abstractions over my data. But for what purpose? Yeah. No, I think I'm gonna like, since it's just so I constantly get stuck on that, and I constantly like revisit, oh, but then deriving it. What if I revalidate and all of this? I think we're gonna just drop that. And it also simplifies the model, like the general state model, because we're not gonna have grocery state, dinner state, to-do state, user state, family state. Like it's all just gonna be these DTOs. And that doesn't mean we're not gonna derive them, but we're not gonna derive them. We're not gonna hide the DTOs by like giving them like functionality. Okay, so let's see what happens now. So what I want is, I want to share these DTOs across the app for cross-reference. But I still want to just, I still want to have the queries. So I want to have dinner state is responsible for the dinner's query and so on and so on. I just want this shared like object of all the data. That's gonna make it easier for me to do like cross-referencing. So I'm gonna create data state again, data state, and then this is gonna be this is gonna be, let's just start with dinners again. So this is gonna be a record of string dinner DTO. What are you complaining about? Data. Oh, of course. No. Oh, wait. What did I do? Oh my god. You know, it's so weird. Like I can't see. Oh yeah. There we go. Hi Hans. Generic version for states. I think I lost the context there, Hans. Could you elaborate? There's a bit of latency. Oh, that's what the colon meant. There's more there. Um, yeah, that's interesting. That's also a thing about data, right? There's a reason why we have these very high abstractions over data, because data is data. Like, they share so many things. Like, they have an ID. You typically want to edit them. They have a loading state, and so on and so on. Mm. And some applications are just about that, is only about that. Like, it's basically syncing with the server. But the kinds of apps I built, they don't really have that much data. It's very like, and the way you manipulate that data is not like, you're not manipulating entities. It's more like you actually do like server-side actions type of thing, or you just toggle like very specific things in the data, and some of the data you want to subscribe to. So for example, like Code Sandbox, with the sandbox, you didn't like want to edit the full sandbox. You were rather like manipulating specific files, or you might flip some flag on the sandbox that you wanted to have a subscription on it, because you wanted that to reflect on other clients that had the same sandbox open, stuff like that. So it didn't make any sense to have like a high abstraction for data management. Yeah, generics are awesome. I love them too. I definitely do. Yeah, like in here we use generics. So I have a collection API, and the only thing it needs is like an ID, and then when you pass in a collection reference, it actually types everything to that thing. So you can pass in the dinners collection, to-dos collection, a week's collection. It doesn't matter. You just get like this super nice API back that's typed correctly to the type of collection. Let's see. So we have data state, and then I'm gonna say data is data state. And we're going to pass it, well, we are going to pass it some stuff. We're going to pass it the n and family persistence. I don't think we need family. Export type, data state, type params, n is environment, and family oh, that was creative. Family persistence and family persistence params. Cool. Oh wait, sorry, we're not actually gonna have this. Sorry, I said we're just gonna have the objects here so we can actually share them. So we're gonna populate these objects from the respective states. So in the dinners, we're gonna populate the dinners, and so on and so on. So we don't actually need anything here. We just want the actual data. Okay, so now we have that one. So let's just try to implement it with the actual data. And this is not actually going to be exposed directly, I suspect. Where's the dinners? So here we're going to pass dinner state. And we're gonna have our data state here. Okay, so let's try it. So what we're gonna do is, instead of having dinners like this, I'm gonna create a query and we're gonna set the data there so that I can share it. But I also, what do I actually want to return it as? How do we show the dinners? Well, we do show a list of dinners. Yeah, we're gonna try something. So reactive query. Can I just say family persistence dinners get all? Yeah, that's kind of nice. But then we need to assign this data. So we're gonna, what we're gonna call it? Yeah, this is also a little bit weird. So we're getting dinner of dinners, and we're gonna set the dinners there, but then we have to return how we get those dinners, and we get them from data dinners. So that's how the query works, at least for now, is that normally if I didn't have that second callback, it would just put all the dinners inside here, and this would be like dinner DTO, right? But now that I'm taking control of where I set that state, now it's a record of string dinner DTO. And the question is that really what I want? No, it's not really that what I want. I want it still to be an array, but I want my lookup records to be a I want to have a lookup record for dinners. So this should mean that this is still now dinner DTO. So now I have a record to look up dinners. And I have a getter that gives me an array of those dinners. So if something updates the dinners here, whatever adds like a dinner or however it updates, we're gonna return an array of dinners. That's how we actually consume it. But then other pieces of data are able to just point to dinners, dinner ID, and then get the actual dinner thing. Yeah, so this makes, I just feel like we're not doing state management, we're doing data management. And is data management state management? It's kind of funny, like how React query is kind of saying that you can use it for state management. Even a React router says it can be used for state management, which is like, it's true, right? Like React query doesn't need to go to the server to fetch something. You can just have default values and you can like mutate that thing. Like you could literally use it for state management, but it's built for data management. And the same for routing. It's like, okay, you can use like queries in the URL for state, but it's built for routing. It's not built for state management. And now we're here building something for state management, but we're adding data management functionality, but it's not really built for data management. It's built for state management. It's very interesting how it all like, how state kind of just seeps into everything. I guess that is what kind of client programming is. It's state management in different forms and shapes. Some of it is URL state, some of it is data state, some of it is like just UI state, some of it is application-wide state. And then we have all these different tools for managing that state. And then some of them but there's like this overlap that's happening. That even though you have a tool for data management, you can, if you squint a bit, you can also use that for application-wide state. That's not bound to like data on the server. It's very interesting. And then you can go like low level and just do state management and don't have these kinds of abstractions like query or anything. You just have to manually handle them. Like data. It was simpler before. When you couldn't use suspense, for example. But now you have suspense, and now consuming data, like defining like how you manage data becomes infinitely more complex. Not infinitely, but it becomes more complex because now you also want to expose the promise of the query, because then you can use suspense in React. It's very interesting. What did I call this thing? I called it a setter. Yeah, it's just very interesting to me. And even here, like with Firebase, it is a data management tool in and of itself. Like it really internally handles all the data for me. So I'm like adding this abstraction on top of it, which is really completely unnecessary. We're kind of doing this just to like show how, if you don't have something like Firebase, if you just have a REST API, like how would you actually use these primitives? That's kind of the idea here, but still, Firebase doesn't support suspense, right? So we're kind of, yeah, I don't know. As I'm getting older, I get really itchy when I feel like we're adding abstractions on things that should be very simple, or like I think they should be very simple, but they just aren't. And some things aren't simple. You think they're simple, but they just aren't simple. Just the fact that I have to like, I have this week DTO that has a reference to a dinner ID. So if I want to derive the actual dinner, looking at that week DTO, I need access to the dinners. And if those dinners are like caught inside a query, not caught, but like embedded inside a query, well, then I have to, if I'm going to derive that dinner, I have to look at, well, first of all, I want the query to represent an array. But when I do lookups like that, I want a record. I don't want to do like dinners.find and then potentially have an undefined. Well, it could be undefined regardless. So that's not a good argument. Yeah, so anyways, I don't want that. So I want the query to represent something I want to consume in the components, which is arrays, right? But internally, I want a record representation of these dinners so that I can easily reference a dinner from other pieces of data. That's the whole point. But there's so much orchestration to that. And then you can create like a very high abstraction that's like, oh, we're going to give all pieces of data a record representation for lookups and an array representation for consumption. That's like just built. It could even be built into query. But then the abstraction is so high that it expects the thing you get from the server to be an actual array where each item in that array has an ID. Right? It just climb up to a very high abstraction. And I don't want that. I want something low level and simple. Yeah, I'm not sure if I want like this Mobx Lite thing is so good in and of itself. Just having like this reactive thing, introducing a functional approach which is closer to components, having transparent observation, and like just documenting how you deal with different kinds of state management. That is a good thing. And then this query thing, even though it's like it's a very powerful tool, it's something else than state management. It's not state management, it's data management. Which is state management, but it's a different type of state management. And it's almost like if you introduce what do you mean, Adam? Oh, you mean like just doing this? Well, what I meant to say is like when people read like Mobx Lite, for example, and they see it has a query, then people think, oh, this is how I should do data fetching. But that's not true either. Like, for example, with Firebase, you shouldn't really do this. Yeah, exactly. So I can do this, right, for dinners, and then I get this list of dinners, which is fine for listing the dinners. But then if I have these weak DTOs that just has a dinner ID, right? There's two choices. Well, there's two different aspects of that. One is like, where do you derive the actual dinner from that ID? Do you do it in a component or do you do it inside your state management? And is it okay to derive that dinner by finding it in this array? So if these dinners didn't have any references elsewhere, this would be perfectly fine. It would be so simple. Like the only thing these dinners are going to be used for is to display them in the UI. But that's not the case. And I know Redux, the first time I was like properly introduced to this was with Redux. And they talked about normalization and denormalization of state. And they just like spread out all the data, right, to their flat structures with their references. And then you bring it all together in a selector. So here you would have like the selector is responsible for making like these references into something you want to present for the UI and something specific for the UI. So the selector is tied to the UI. Which I also which is also something I think makes a lot of sense, is that the component is responsible for bringing together the state it needs in the form it needs it to consume it. But then we're back to that problem of deriving things, because you can't cache that in a component. So every time you But that's okay. That's fine. So you can have like a getter that's like all these different. Yeah, so I guess that's what I mean is like you can have you can just fetch all the freaking data in just this data store, and everything's a record for referencing. And then when you expose that data to your components, you just derive everything. So you have like a getter or computed or whatever. So if you consume like a week, that's like a computed that takes the week to dos, and then it takes the dinners, brings them together, and returns an array, because that's how you want to present that data for the components. That makes a lot of sense to me. And that's really what we're doing here. Yeah, maybe that makes more sense. Oh, yeah, maybe that. Well, yeah. So a different way to present this is like you rather have your data state, and then that's the queries. So you just have the queries, like you can even call it queries. And then those queries, they create records instead of arrays. And then you have a good structure to like build these. So here dinners would be like get dinners, and then you would do like data dinners, and this will be a query, right? So you could say, oh, look at me writing invalid code. So if data dinners, so if we didn't have a value there, we would just return an empty array, right? Or if we do have a value there, which means that's the record, we could say object value is data dinners, for example. So now I've chosen to but now I can't consume the promise. That's the thing. Like now I don't have the actual query anymore. So what if I want to access the actual query? There's like these different layers. You have the actual data fetching, then you have keeping that data up to date, and then you have another layer of deriving that data. I just can't. And it's just so convoluted. I feel like there's something. It's almost like I feel like this should be a responsibility of the of like the data fetching layer. But then you have another problem. It can't be the so what people used to do back in the day is like, so if I were to fetch, so let's say to-dos, and a to-do has an author ID or a user ID, but you don't care about the user ID, right? You want the user. So what it does on the server side is that it actually populates. You have an endpoint for to-dos, and in the data fetching on the server or in the data lookup, it actually goes and grabs the user and then returns the actual user there, even though that's not stored in the database. Like the question is, okay, let's draw. The whole problem for me is, oh, that's something else. The whole problem for me is where do you derive? So I have this, what the hell is this? You can't see it. No. So I have my client here. Oh, something weird going on here. It's completely off. I have these weird, can you see them? Yeah, you see that? What the hell is this? Whatever. So you have like client, and you have server, and then you have the actual two entities. You have like a to-do, and that to-do has a user or a user reference. So the question is, where do you derive that user? Like, is the server responsible for doing that? So the server brings these two things together, right? Into an actual to-do with a user. But if the server does do that, you have a problem in the client, because then you get duplicate records of users, and then the client has to denormalize that. Or you can tell the client to grab them individually. So get a list of to-dos and a list of users. But now the problem is, well, you don't want to list all users, right? So now you get another different complexity in the client, which is like, okay, I have this to do, but I want to lazily update or grab the user. And then the question is, do you want to show the to do while you're grabbing the user and only show the username when you're grabbing the to do? Or do you want to wait for the user to resolve before you show the to do? Right? And then the question becomes, but if you do that, then it's like you're showing the list of to-dos, and should each individual to-do do this? And then you kind of have this jumping list, because each to-do tries to grab their own user. Maybe some of the to-dos has the same user reference. So when you grab that initial user for one to-do, maybe it resolves like 5 different to-dos because it's the same user, and they just pop into place. But then other ones are still waiting. And then it's like, okay, so you don't want to you don't want to do that either, because it creates a janky experience. So no, I want to wait for all to-dos to resolve with their users before I do anything. And then you have a different kind of problem again, because now you have to create like a way to like like promise all to-dos and their user fetching. So there, it's just insanely complex. And every single version of this has a problem with deriving. And I don't like it. Why is it like this? And that's what I try to mention. It's like, maybe this should really just be so I did work on this very interesting experiment. I wonder if that would have solved this. Well, it wouldn't have solved it. But it was a really cool experiment where, yeah, I'm going to play more with that. It was basically using a SOD schema to define a state store. But and then it uses a proxy. So you combine a proxy with a SOD schema, and then you can point that to anything. You can point it to the server, you can point it to local storage, you can point it to memory. The point is that you just consume an object. So it doesn't matter, like from the consumption perspective, it's just an object and arrays you're consuming. But under the hood, it's using that proxy with the SOD schema to put default values, to go and grab stuff on the server, sync with local storage, whatever. So you kind of have an adapter to it. It was a really cool, interesting concept. Um, but yeah, that's something else. But yeah, this just bothers the hell out of me. I wonder how people handle this. How in web applications? How do people? Oh my god, I can't believe this. Ban. In web, how do developers handle entities that reference each other? So, for example, I have a to do with the user ID, which should present the actual user in the UI. The way I see this is, well, I can make the server send me the to do with the user, but now I have to manually denormalize this in the client. I can make the server, I can lazily fetch the user when consuming to-dos. But now I have pending users which will create, well, not jank, which will pop in. Well, I can lazy fetch it when consuming, but now I cannot always show the user as they might still be loading, and I still have to handle the normalization. I can wait for all to-dos and related users before showing the to-dos. But I still have to denormalize. All right. There is so much manual management in the client. It makes my head hurt. Why is it so complex? And does it need to be? What do you mean, does the screen need both? Oh, sorry. Why do you want to do end users? Yeah, so like, I want to show the author, the name of the author of the to-do. Like to-dos, maybe posts would be a better example. So you have posts and you list like 20 posts. It's a public thing. So you have posts and you want to show the author name, but you only have the author ID. Oh, you do this on the server. But what do you do if you need to? So you have so you duplicate the data then. So the client kind of fetches the user many times, which is fine. But what would you do if a user changes? So for example, if you, well, I guess you click the user. Yeah, I don't know a good example of that. Or like if you didn't just show the name, you show the number of likes or something on that user. Yeah, so you do that on the server. But what if you return something that needs to update? So something else is interacting with the user. The user isn't a good example here, but it's like generally. Because then if you had it denormalized in the client, if you change like one thing on the user, all the posts like showing that user would also change. But if each post has its own version of the user, you can't update the user. Maybe that's not a normal scenario though. But it's like, it's just like that's how I like to think about things, is you kind of go to the extreme complexity, and then if you can solve that in a very minimal way, like, or is there a solution? Is there a minimal solution for that like edge complexity? Maybe there isn't. Like many times there isn't, and you should only apply like abstractions and tools when you actually need them. Kind of like the query thing we were playing with here. It's like normally you don't need anything else than the callback because you just want to grab the freaking data and show it. And the only reason I introduced that second callback is because, well, what if you have data that refers to other data? You need to be able to share that state. So for example, if you have a list of to-dos, but you also want to fetch a single to-do, right? Or let's use posts. Posts are better. So you have a list of posts, but you also want to fetch individual posts, right? Those two queries needs to share the same data. Because if you make a change to a single post, maybe it's your own post, right? So you have a list of posts, you click a post, you edit the name of that post, and then you go back to the posts list. That post list's post also should have changed its name. But if these are two different queries, it won't. So you need to share the actual post. Yeah, exactly. Join in the client. Yeah, so you would revalidate the posts list. Yeah, maybe this is the thing that like I'm having a hard time with the revalidate thing. Is that it's in my mind is about like I'm making these updates and like I'm manipulating, like when I manipulate something in the UI, in my mind I kind of see it's kind of like the matrix, right? I'm manipulating something in my state. But with data and this revalidation thing, that's not how it works. And it's very unintuitive to me. So like if I have a list of posts and then I click a post and then I go and I edit that post, right? To me, that's like the same post, the thing in the list and the thing you're editing. But with revalidate, you kind of see them as two different things. But it seems so wasteful to me. It's like, but I already have the post. But I also want to be able to open a single post. And I don't want to load all posts if I want to open a single post. Like when I go directly to a post, I don't want to load all posts, right? But now if I already have all the posts, when I go to a single post, I don't want to fetch it again. I just want to like consume that. So it makes sense to me, like if you have two separate queries, one for posts and one for a single post, that when you go into the single post, edit it, you can revalidate the full posts list. That's okay. I can take that one. But if I have the full posts list and I go into a single post, I don't want to refetch that post. Like just the experience of like having all the posts and then clicking into a single post. I would have to wait for it. But I have it. And I think this is the thing, like all the exceptionally snappy experiences I've built has been based on like only fetching the data you actually need and manipulating like shared state. Yeah, that's a good point. Like if I'm on the posts list and I like go away and then I get back to my computer and I haven't like revalidated it and then I click it, and you can argue that, oh, but then you have a super sale post, right? Yeah. I remember I even had like there's a library called the normalize or something. Yeah. But what if you can't control the server? Like, for example, my dinner. The dinner I want to show in the week to do. There isn't any other way to get that without fetching all the dinners or fetching the single dinner. Yeah, I guess you could have like a dinner. What's it called? Dinner query. Yeah. So when I show like a single day, that's based on a week. Yeah, it's not really like, yeah, but that could be handled. And then if there is a dinner there, I will create like a query for that dinner. Like you would rather have a weekday state. How did I store? Yeah. I was thinking about an example. Week state. Where is my week to do? Where's my week to do? Where do I actually... I can't remember how I store this. I have a week to do. And the ID here is the actual... Where's my week? Where's my week to do? Week DTO. There it is. Oh... Yeah, so I store that... Oh, do I store all week? How do I store that? Week DTO. But there I only have dinners. How the hell do I store that? Groceries, dinners, weeks, collection. Oh, yeah, sorry. Yeah, I store them behind a week ID, so that's fine. Sorry. Yeah, so as an example, like, where is the thing? Oops. So here I have like the shopping list. That's simple. Like there's no cross reference of that, but for like, I guess this is the most complicated view. So this is like the current week, and there's a query for the current week. And that query includes what does it include? Yeah, sorry. So there's two queries. There's one query for the actual week, which is like also holds dinner references. And then there's a query for the to-dos for that week, which also just has an ID, right? So you have two like references you need to pick up. You need to pick up like the actual dinner based on a dinner ID in the week per day. And then you have another query, which are the week to-dos. And then from that, you need to go and fetch all the to-dos. And would you then like... So in this mental model, would I then like first fetch the week, but in the same query, would I then also fetch all the to-dos? And then if I add a to-do or remove a to-do or do anything with a to-do, I would revalidate that full query. So it would fetch the week and all the week to-dos again. Or would I just have a query of the week and then... this is melting my brain. Like, I have an insanely complex UI here. It doesn't look complex, but this fucking calendar, like every iteration I've had of it, on it, has melted my brain. Because there's so much cross-referencing going on. And like doing a revalidation approach for that calendar, it feels like it would be a shitty experience. But then again, it's like there's a reason why I'm using Firebase for this app, and I'm doing subscription-based data management, because then it just works, kinda. There's no revalidation. The data is always up to date. I don't have to think about that. I just have to wire it up. And then if I have a dinner on Tuesday and then I go to dinners and I change the name of the dinner, I have to revalidate. Well, yeah. So the point is that would be the same query then. So I have a dinner query and then yeah, so I would just revalidate that single dinner query. Yeah. And then if I deleted it, it would kind of show as, yeah, it depends on what I want to do. But I could like not show it at all because there's an error on that query now because it can't find the thing. Okay, so there's queries for list of things. And then if I, so for example, I guess that's interesting. So the groceries list is just a query of groceries, right? There's no grocery query. There's no like clicking on a single grocery. But for dinners, there is a query for all the dinners. But there's also a query for individual dinners. And in the calendar, I would use the query for the individual dinner to show the dinner. But that has the same reference. So you have the same reference for querying individual items. And then checklists is like to-dos. Oh, it says add to-do. And then there's a query for each individual to-do. But if I change an individual, so that's the thing. So if I change an individual to-do, I would revalidate the to-do query, but I would also revalidate the to-dos query. The same with dinners. Like I have the dinners query, individual dinner, changing the dinner, I would revalidate also the dinners query. And then for weeks, every time so this again will be the to-dos query based on the to-dos query. Yeah, so it's not like cross-referencing using state. It's cross-referencing using queries. That's something that, yeah, I guess that computes in my brain. But then if I have this list of to-dos, and now these things here, they represent a week to-do. Sorry for bad naming, but this is a week to-do, which has assignments. And yeah, so this is an interesting one. So it's fine to like show the list of to-dos. It's just sorted by when things happened last, or categorized by that. But then I have this week to-do, which actually references a user ID. So now each user wouldn't actually be a user. It would be a query. Or each family member would be a query. Yeah, that's something I can like, I think. So when you think about data, data isn't state. Data are queries. And the way you manage like cross-referencing is that, for example, with posts and post, you'll have a posts query, but you'll also have individual post queries, where the posts query is something you define once, right? Because there's only one endpoint. But for individual posts, that's something you would actually dynamically insert, right? Based on actually accessing it. And then if you change a single item, you revalidate the parent list. So here, if I were to like click this thing, what would actually happen under the hood? So first of all, I would show the to-do based on the lists of to-dos. And then for each item here, I would use the actual like family member query or like user query, whatever I want to call it, to get that specific user. And then that's fine. And then I would use the week to do. But I don't think I have anything for a specific. Yeah, so I guess you could call that a list as well. So yeah, that's also a list. So I have a query for all the week to-dos of a week. And that's a list, just like to-dos is a list. It's just scope to the current week. But I don't actually go into like a specific user or a specific to-do here, right? It's always in the context of showing everything. But anyways, and then I flip this thing and I do a mutation on the server for that specific week to do. So I would have to revalidate the whole list of week to dos again. Which I guess is like not what I would want to do here, but like in general purpose. Because if I wanted to optimize this, I would rather, yeah, so if I wanted to optimize this, I would subscribe to week to dos. And then when it was modified, so I click this, it was modified, and it will just update itself. I wouldn't have to revalidate the list. But I do wonder how that will work though, because subscriptions aren't like, so even if I like wait for the, if I toggle it optimistically and then I wait for the subscription, like you don't know when it's updated. And like revalidate, you know that you have the fresh data when you revalidate. But if you rely on subscriptions, Yeah, that's an interesting one. Like, how do you then optimize it? Like, there's two ways to do it. Either you subscribe to the list and it just updates itself as you do mutations, but then you can't control like when you click it, it's going to be a delay because it's even a transaction, and those are slower in Firebase. So you're actually going to notice, like now it's instant, right? But it wouldn't be instant if I relied on the subscription. And also if I revalidate, like it will be even slower. But I want the feeling of like immediately when you click it. But maybe that could be the mutation. It's like I have a mutation for each of these to-dos, and that mutation takes... Oh, that's interesting. So the mutation takes the full list of days, and that's what I'm going to show. And then I do revalidate. Yeah, and then whenever I click this, it's going to abort the previous mutation. So it doesn't like revalidate or anything like that. But then when I've done like my final click, it goes through and it revalidates, and then it should show the same. I guess one issue is that I wouldn't see, like if I was doing this at the same time as my partner, I wouldn't see this update until I made my change. But that's a different thing. Like it's because I'm not using a subscription. But I could use a subscription to update my partner, right? So yeah, you know what? So I could still I could still have a subscription. I can still have a subscription, and then as I mutate there, the full array of days, and revalidate, that would still work. It's a little bit like overhead because I'm like I have the subscription, which is also going to keep me up to date, but I can't rely on when that event arrives. So I don't know when I shouldn't show the optimistic update anymore. If I were to like mutate, show optimistic update, and then as soon as the mutation is done, I would not show the optimistic update anymore. The problem is that the new event for the actual mutation might not have arrived yet. I wonder if Firebase actually handles that. If you do like a transaction, when that promise resolves, are you guaranteed that it's been updated? I wonder. Okay, but I think I get it. I'm definitely overcomplicating it. Like with all the experience I had, like not having these kinds of abstractions at all, just manipulating state. Like we did a lot of that in like one of the first startups I worked at where we used Cerebral. Like there weren't any abstractions for this. And then like with Redux having normalization and denormalization and selectors and stuff like that, it's like a very strong muscle in me. That's how you do it. And you can do it like that. And it gives you a lot of control, but it has so much boilerplate. So being able to think about your data state as just queries, that's definitely simpler. When I run a transaction in Firebase and have a subscription to the data. Does Firebase guarantee that the subscription event will arrive and update before the promise of the transaction ends, resolves, preventing any jank in the UI. Okay, but I'm sold on this. So we're gonna refactor this. So we're gonna think about every piece of data as a query, and then even though and we are gonna have some subscriptions, but they are just gonna sit like on top of well, let's see what this one says first. Because if I can have a subscription running there, and then I can safely do mutations, and I don't have to revalidate, then we just don't revalidate. But if Firebase doesn't guarantee that when you run a mutation, yeah, it does. Is consistent and designed to keep the and to avoid jank. It isn't documented as a hard formal guarantee of event ordering. Interesting. Yes, in normal scenarios. Okay. So I wanna get through this because I feel like this is really like shifting my perspective on how I think about data. And it also means that we would remove that setter getter thing, which I like. Okay, so we have dinners, and that is a query. Let's see. So that would be getting all the dinners, and we're not gonna have a subscription to dinners. Let's see. Yeah, and we're not gonna have this data thing. Remove the data. So we're just gonna grab the dinners, and we're not gonna create dinner state anymore. I'm gonna keep like the actual thing so we can look at, because it does a few things. Like you have set image. Well, I guess we can move that now. But it also has its image URL thing. But I think we're gonna do get image URL instead. Is this a promise? Yeah, maybe that could even be a query. Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, that is interesting. We're gonna do that. Okay. So, sorry, set image, set inner image. So we're not gonna have this one. Okay, so we're just gonna do the, so this will be ID string, and then upload. Yeah, and then we're gonna have, let's see, set dinner. So this will be dinner images, I guess. So this is gonna be a record of string, oops, query for a string. Is query coming from, oh, it's coming from Firebase. I think I can do reactive.query, or didn't I do that? I'm gonna make that happen. So you can do reactive.query. But for now, we just need to grab it from, oh, we don't actually have it. That sucks. Isn't it there? Oh, I don't export it. Dag nugget. Okay, we're gonna fix that, but just let's write the code first. So dinner images, dinners. Dinner image, you know what? We're gonna dinner query, dinner image queries. And then we're gonna have, let's see. Yeah, dinner queries. Yeah. Because this is the thing, right? I allow you to, dinners query. I allow you to go and grab all the dinners to list them. But interestingly enough here, we also have queries to images, because that's just how Firebase works. And then we have individual dinner queries. But these are just records, right? Because we are dynamically opening them. This is not something we fetch initially. It's only the dinners we fetch initially. And maybe we didn't even want to do that. Well, that's the interesting thing. It's like, this doesn't even fetch initially. It's only when we actually consume the dinners query, it starts fetching it. But let's remove, so this is set dinner image. So what I could do here is like, I could say, what is it? Dinners, the dinner image queries. So I could put a reactive query here, which, like, optimistically. Yeah, maybe I could just do this. Get image. Wait, why doesn't it exist? Oh, sorry. It's this one I want. Sorry about that. Let's see. Yeah, so the tricky thing is, okay, so this is interesting because this is the other thing. It's like you have these lists of things, like the queries, but these things here, they are dynamic, right? So you actually don't want to expose them directly. Let's see. So dinner image queries. So this is the really cool thing in, let's see, dinner image queries. Let's see. So we're not actually going to expose them. So this would be dinner queries. Because these are going to be, what did we call them? Yeah, you know what? You know what? Dinners query. Get query dinners. And then we're going to have, no, sorry. It's not a getter. Sorry. How would this work? Yeah, sorry. Query dinners. Yeah, sorry. So the thing I'm exploring is like, one thing is having a dinners query. You could just put that as a dinners query, right? But when you have these dynamic queries, you want to actually explicitly say query dinner image, for example. And then you pass in the string. So you would still do this when you render a component. but it's actually going to create the query if it doesn't already exist. That's the thing. So this would just be for consistency. Query dinner image. Yeah. Let's see. And then we would have query dinner. Function query dinners would be return dinners query. Function query dinner. Yeah, exactly. And then the same for query dinner image. What's this? Yeah, so this would actually be, oh, this would be image ref. There we go. Image ref. So this is set dinner image. So this will be a mutation. Set dinner image. That will be a reactive mutation. Set dinner image. Yeah, and we need this to be an actual object. It's just how it is. And even though we have the image ref here, so what we can do here, the thing I wanted to do is like we could like query the inner image and put it right in there, but I don't think that's really necessary. We don't have this one anymore. Add dinner is also a reactive mutation. That takes a new dinner. Async function, blah, 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 blah. Okay, and then we're adding a dinner. So what we want to do here now, we want to say dinners query.revalidate. Cool. Okay, so this one's okay, we're just gonna fix, I want to fix that last thing. Git status. I want to kind of conclude on this. So we have query, oh my God. Well, first of all, we need to export that, and then we're gonna create a namespace here. Export namespace reactive, and this is gonna export type query. Export type query. Can I like do as query query.query, and then we say query.query t. And then, yeah, the same for export type mutation t equals query. Oh, sorry, this is not. This would be a mutation.mutation. And this will be mutation dot. Oh, not exporting that one either. Base mutation with params. Oh, yeah. Ah, we have two different types. We have mutation with params and mutation without params. Ah, I want to simplify this. It's kind of silly. I wonder. But yeah, let's go and so we're not gonna have that setter thing. Which means we don't need this. We don't need O here. We don't need this. And then yeah, we don't need this one. So this will be state of promise. Do I need this one? Yeah, still need that one. Interesting. So this one wouldn't have anything. I think that's it. Yeah. What are you saying? Also, I can do void. Yeah, exactly. I thought I was doing something weird there. Like you should be able to. Export. Oh, wait a minute. That's only for that thing. But I can say export type mutation p equals void, right? And then I have base mutation TP and mutator. Do we call it mutator? Okay. Yeah, I think we can do this. I'm gonna call this mutation. Let's try it. Yeah, so yeah, of course. Oh, can I do? Can't I do void? P extends. Ah, for fuck's sake. T. Why is it? Oh, P. Did the opposite here. Yeah, params or void, I guess. Okay. So let's do. Oh. Or void. And then yeah, it kind of sucks that you have to have two. Let's see. Base mutation params or void. Yeah, and this is the mutation. And this is gonna be a mutation. Okay. Yeah, and then this needs to be args. Oh, sorry, did I remove you? Yeah. Oh, aren't you happy? Mutate does not exist. Oh, fudge. Did I remove? Oh, this should be mutate. Sorry. Yeah, p extends void. And then I think this needs to be like that. Params. Oh. Ah. Goddamn typing. Oh, this is horrible. So here I'm saying params. Okay, of course. Args. Cool. So if I do cons mut mutation. Resolve string mut.mutate is happy, but if I say ID string, it needs ID string. Nice. Okay, that's how I wanted it to work. Cool. And then in index we have mutation t p, and then p is extends params or void equals void. Yeah, and then I guess this is mutation.params. We have to export that as well. Export. Okay, cool. So now we have these types available on the reactive thing, and we don't have that setter getter thingy. Let's build that. And package JSON. So I'm just gonna do like patch versions there, even though it's breaking. Remove setter getter expose types and publish. Yeah, now I can enter the OTP code in the CLI. That's amazing. And then let's just yarn add Mobx Lite latest. Oh, reactive.query. Cool. Why are you complaining? Oh, dinners get. Oh, because this can be undefined. Oh, interesting. I want this to throw if it can't find it. So that's just a thing in that implementation. Okay, but we're gonna reevaluate this now. So let's drop the on dispose. Okay, let's do a summary of the whole thing. So my brain has been wired to manually handle data. That's just been in the game for so long and been consuming, like, not having control of the server. I never had control of the server. I either been using Firebase or other kinds of databases where I can't really, and not really been ever like exposed to deriving state on the server. And then like looking at React query and seeing this revalidate thing, and then yeah, that's interesting. It seems very wasteful. How would I like derive data? How does that work in that context? What about subscriptions? Blah, 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 blah. But going through this discussion now, the way I think about it is you have some state that's on your data and that's on your server. And the way you define that in your state store is you call it a query. There's no like manually setting custom state. Like the state lives on the server, it is a query. And this is the callback to grab that thing. And then there are two types of things. You have lists, like collections, and you have records. And the way they work is that if you have a collection, you would just define the query, right? Because there's only one collection. But when you want to consume individual records, you need to dynamically do that. You can't like list all of them, right? Because you don't even know what they are. So that's what these represents. This is when I want to consume a single dinner, or I want to consume a single dinner image. Yeah, dinner image. And for consistency, I expose these as functions to React. So I actually call query dinners when I'm rendering, or I call query dinner image when I'm rendering, or I call query dinner as I'm rendering. And doing that just returns the query where I can look at the state. I can look at, use the promise if I want to do that, all that stuff. And then I have a mutation for adding a dinner and setting a dinner image. So when I query dinners, I just return the dinners query. When I query a single dinner, we're going to update the dinners queries with a query if it isn't there already. I think one thing that's kind of one thing we're not handling here is like, what if I do revalidate? What if I do revalidate like, yeah, okay, but let's go through it first. I still have like concerns. And then if we, there's a component that handles the image. So we do query dinner image with the image ref. So here we just use an image ref instead of an ID to like handle the dynamic or the dynamic reference. So this is all fine. And when I'm setting a dinner image, I just upload the image. And when that's done, we're gonna get an image ref back. Where do I actually set? Yeah, sorry. Yeah, that one's interesting though. Because I don't actually have the image ref yet when I upload an image. But I think I'm just showing it in the... Yeah, when you're in edit mode, it actually just shows, that's like local component state showing the image. So that's fine. And then when I'm adding a dinner, I'm going through all of this, and then I revalidate the dinners query whenever I add a new dinner, which makes sense. The thing that's a little bit tricky though is, yeah, I'm gonna fix this one. Let's fix that one first. If no data, throw new error. Cannot find document. Where are we? That was dinner state. What was I talking about? There was something about, yeah, so what if I do have a subscription here, right? That subscription, what if that subscription, yeah, but that's the whole point. It's kind of weird to have a subscription on top of this anyways. Yeah, no, we're not going to do subscriptions at all. We're just going to do this revalidate thing. And what were we going to do for optimistic? Yeah, we're going to use a mutation for the optimistic update for the other thing. But we do need a subscription for toggling like the week thingy. Another thing is like what we often experience when we do grocery shopping is that I add something to the grocery list. So we want a subscription on the groceries. I just wonder how those subscriptions apply to because in Firebase those subscriptions trigger both on my changes and on, well, I guess it does in all solutions, but it's kind of weird to have like a groceries query and then I have a subscription. Yeah, I guess that subscription would just look at the query, and if it's resolved, it will go in and just like add the updated data, I guess. Or you could like revalidate. So every time there's like a, yeah, maybe that's how you do it. So you have a subscription that just listens to changes for groceries, and then whenever you get like an update, it will just revalidate. I guess that's how maybe you would do it in other solutions. You would just get a notification that, hey, something changed in this thing you're interested in. Go revalidate it. Yeah, maybe we could do that. And the point is that we really only care about that when you're actually looking at the groceries, right? So that's another thing. Okay, cool. You know, we're gonna, I'm gonna stop the stream, but we're gonna keep doing this because this is gonna show like how you would actually use queries and mutations. And for me, it was quite a good conclusion to just think about your data state as queries. So you don't have to orchestrate anything. There's just a collection, which is just a single query. And then you have individual pieces of like records, which is just a dynamic lookup of data. Oh, yeah, I think I know now. Well, the thing that I didn't like. Yeah, so there's one thing missing here that I don't like. And that is, so for example, if let's say I'm subscribing to dinners, subscribing to updates, and then for every dinners update, I'm gonna revalidate the dinners. But what about all the dinner queries? What is interesting there, though, is if I do have a subscription, that subscription should definitely tell me which ID updated. So what we can do is in this, and I get that information with Firebase. So what we can do is I'm going to subscribe to changes. And then every time something is modified, yeah, like every time, oh, this is interesting. So every time something is added or deleted, I'm going to revalidate the dinners query. But every time something is modified, I'm going to revalidate if exists the dinner query. That's interesting. Yeah, you know what? That's a very good. I've always seen like server-side rendering as kind of a, not a complexity, but yeah, it's very interesting how I've been so exposed to these rich client-side applications and kind of been just forced into managing all the complexity of making that like feel super snappy and performant. And you have such a good point. Like it's so much easier to do your data fetching on the server. And again, like why React is like embracing server-side components, just grab your data there and expose it. But it has a cost. Like it has a huge like not a huge cost. It depends on the experience you want, of course. But to me, it's like it's such an itch for me because I'm used to building these applications that every time you click something, like there is no data, like there's no asynchronicity in the Surface experience at all. Everything is instant. That's the kind of applications I've been building. Like unless there's actually processing that needs to happen on the server. But if it's possible to optimistically update it, it's like it's instant. So this is like just pushing against like a core value of mine of like everything should feel instant. And but you can still make that happen, or that's what I'm excited about here. It's like with this mutation, we should be able to create the same experience, even though there's a lot more like data fetching happening in the background. Because it's definitely simpler to like just think of these things as queries. It definitely is simpler. Yeah, it's a very strong mental model. But yeah, I'm pumped to continue iterating on this and then see if we can make the experience the same, especially this one. Like I never thought about like, what about just making this a mutation, and the mutation is passing in your local current state of this full array, which is exactly what's going to be applied in the transaction on the server. And then it will feel super snappy, because even if you click super fast, it's going to just keep that optimistic state all the time until the very final time you actually click something. It doesn't abort the mutation, and it's going to apply it to the server. And then the complexity here is like having these other family members that's all going to sit with you and click these things. But then you have a subscription for those. And that subscription is gonna, yeah, and again, like that subscription is gonna work the same. It's just gonna revalidate the weak to do, right? But that doesn't matter because you're still operating on your optimistic version, right? So it's very interesting. Like I never thought about this, that you can actually have that same consistent like experience by not having to manage all of that. Yeah, I'm very pumped by this. I wish I had this conclusion this morning and we could just implement all of this. But yeah, you know what, Adam, huge shout out. I really enjoy, even though I'm like 41 years old, a bit immature. I don't like I like learning new things, but sometimes it can be you know how you kind of been taught one thing and it's been good to you, but then there's this, oh, but you can just do this, and then there's a threshold of like leaving your old knowledge behind. It's like teaching an old dog new tricks kind of thing. But I really appreciate it, like you poking at this and questioning it, and we even made things simpler now, so that's also really good. Okay, cool. I'm not sure if I'm able to do another stream today, but thanks for following along, and then we're gonna dive right back into this and continue implementing the next time, and I'm gonna update the documentation around this as well. Cool. Bye for now.